eating and drinking. It's about helping us be righteous, about peace, about joy in the Holy Spirit. For he who serves Christ in these things, you are acceptable and you are approved by men. You're doing a good job. This is acceptable. This is approving. Verse 19. Therefore, let us pursue the things which make for peace. He repeats himself there, peace. And for the things which may edify one another. So there it is, Christian, in context. These are the four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure that we're walking in righteousness, peace, joy, and we're edifying. And when we're speaking and acting, we're helping people walk more righteous, more peaceful, more joy, and more edifying. If it won't edify, I love you, but shut up. If it's not going to help someone be edifying, have peace or joy, just be quiet. Just stop it. Because you're not being godly. You're being demonic. You're bringing people down. That's not what we're to be doing. I know that because the next verse, look at verse 20. Do not destroy the work of God in someone's life just for the sake of what you can do. That's awfully selfish, isn't it? Well, I'm going to screw you up, but I can do it. You're destroying your brother? The Great Commission is to make disciples, to make people on fire for Jesus. So if that's the case, all things are pure, but it's evil for the man who does them with offense, that you know that you're hurting someone. Verse 21, it is good neither then to eat meat or drink wine or do anything which, here it is, here's the 3, causes your brothers to stumble, is offended, or made weak. So these are the no-goes. If you stumble someone, stop it. If you're offending someone, quit it. And if you're weakening someone, well then absolutely stop, for the love of God. Stop these things. When people are around you, they would spill on fire to do what is right. As Jesus said in the Beatitudes, we are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. They should feel a peace that surpasses understanding, that shalom, that rest, that excitement about Jesus, that joy that we're going to heaven, and feel edified that they can do a better job no matter how much they sucked yesterday or that morning, that they can be edified and encouraged. But if someone's around you and they leave you and you've stumbled them, you've offended them, you've weakened them, well, that's exactly what the devil wants to happen. He wants us to feel weak. He wants us to feel that we're not right with God. He wants us to stumble. So we don't stumble, offend, or weaken. You're not using your liberty right at all. That's why Paul says, even though I can't do these things, I'll never eat meat. I can. I'll never eat meat. I'm just going to love him because even though I can do these things, I love them more than myself. So no matter what I do, I make sure they are righteous, peaceful, joyful, and edified by the end of my time with them. And if anyone comes to you and they feel stumbled, offended, or weakened, you have sinned. Now you've taken your liberty and you've sinned by your liberties. Crazy. You could have done these things, but because if you did them without loving them, you actually sinned because you didn't love God and love others. You didn't really do it right. So they stumbled and they offended. So that's not at all how we want to act. Verse 22, do you have faith? Have it to yourself before God. Happy is he who does not condemn himself from what he approves. Some people over-condemn yourself. You can have these liberties and do them. But some people will really condemn them in their liberties, and that's too bad. Verse 23, but he who doubts is condemned if he eats, because he does not eat with faith or conviction, for whatever is not of faith is sin. So you need to be led by faith. So on these things, if you have faith, then you're good to go. You can do these. Okay. I want to go through some things real quick. I want to go through some of these. Let's run through and just see these. That way you can, because the Bible says test all spirits, test all pastors, and I can't just go through. So I want to go to some of these. So we'll go left, right. You guys know the 10 Commandments, but in case you don't, we're not going to go there right now, but it's in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. That's where the 10 Commandments are. Now let's go to Romans 1. This is to show the stuff that we can't do. So I think it's going to be really clear at the end of this. Go to Romans 1, go to the right to Romans 1. And let's start in 26. Actually, no. Let's start in 25. 25. Romans 1:25. It says, we should not exchange the truth of God for the lie and worship and serve the creature or creation over the Creator. Some people will worship the devil or they'll worship things of this world. This goes back to really the first and the second commandment, specifically the second. Don't worship anything that is visual. God is spirit, John 4. And those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So we don't idolize anything other than Jesus. Verse 26, for this reason God gave them up because they gave up on God. That was in verse 24, we didn't read that one. But for this reason God gave them up to vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. They went with other women. That's not natural. Verse 27, the men do the same thing. They leave the women, which is natural, for other men, which is unnatural. Likewise also, men leaving the natural use of the woman burned in lust for one another, and men became with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of the error of their ways. This is a no-go. This is not your liberty. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. It's not right. Verse 28. Even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, so God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting, that's not right, not approved, not acceptable. They became filled with all unrighteousness, opposite of what we're supposed to be, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, being jealous, burning in jealousy, being malicious, just hurting people just for the sake of being malicious, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. People begin to whisper, backbite, gossip, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, and just unloving, unforgiving, and unmerciful. These are not behaviors we have the liberty to act. We just don't. We might fall into it at times, but we cannot practice that lifestyle to be right with God. I know that because it says that. Look at verse 32 again. You know that the righteous judgment of God is coming. That those who practice these things. We fall into, sometimes we act in a sinful way, but we're not practicing these things. If you do, you deserve death. These are no-goes. You don't have the freedom at any time to act this way under any stinking reason. But not only if you do the sin, we can't even approve those who practice them. So we can never say, well, that's good for you, but I wouldn't do that. As soon as we say, well, you can do that, but I won't, we actually are partaking of their sin. Just as Ezekiel 3:33 said, if you don't say that it's wrong, if you're not being the watchman, then you're actually partaking of it with them. So you can't play the coward card and be like, oh, well, you can act that way, but I wouldn't. Well, no, if you say you're acting that way, that's okay. You're saying it's okay for them to go to hell, and that's not loving. If you love them, you don't want them to go to hell. Obviously, you want them to go to heaven. So if you love them and want to go to heaven, why would you approve them going to hell? It's not loving. So you can't practice these things. And we've studied Romans already because we're in Romans 14. So let's go to 1 Corinthians 5. Go to the right, to the right, to the right. It's a race. 1 Corinthians 5. 1 Corinthians 5. Run. Right. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 5. 1 Corinthians 5. 1 Corinthians was full, and Corinthians was just full of a lot of sin and nastiness. There was an issue of sexual immorality in chapter 5. But I want to pick up in chapter 5, verse 9. Where he says that these things, you can't be Christian and do these things. In fact, if you know of anyone who says they're Christian does these things, don't even partake, don't eat. They're not right. They're just liars. They're not right with God, and it's going to stumble other people to have, if they see you with them, they're going to think that's okay because they're saying they're Christian, they're doing that. Then you say you're a Christian, you're doing that. You're stumbling. You're stumbling. You can't do it. You can't eat with them because they say they're Christian, they're sinning, and if you eat with them, you're going to stumble them. And if you stumble them, then you can't. That's not loving. You can't do it. So look at verse 9. I wrote to you in my epistle not to keep company with sexually immoral people. It's true, don't. Yet I did not mean with sexually immoral people of this world. They're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. Otherwise, or even the covetous or extortioners or idolaters, because if that's the case, look at the end of verse 10, you would need to leave the world. They're everywhere. The whole world is full of sexually immoral people, extortioners, people who idolize things other than Jesus. But he says, I'm clarifying to you in verse 11, I'm writing to you now not to keep company with anyone who says they're a Christian, who says they're a brother or sister in Christ, who is also sexually immoral, covetous, idolizing, reviling, drinking, extorting, stealing, basically. Not even to eat with such a person. For what have I to do with judging those who are outside? Do not judge those who are inside. We need to hold the Christian accountable. But those who are outside, God will judge them. Those who are outside the church, God will deal with it. Therefore, put away from yourself the evil person. Get away from that. I don't need help sinning. I don't. I got that one. Yes, I can do that one. I need help not stumbling. I need help not being weakened. I want to be stronger. So I need to put all the evil away from. I'm not going to watch that movie, not because I'm self-righteous, because I don't want to think like that. I don't want